Coming up this week on Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, Model X signature deliveries have finally begun. I got my hands on a Model X for a brief moment. Elon Musk rebukes an Autopilot article and more. Let's wing it! This is Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast. My name is Ryan McCaffrey. It's episode 21 for December 20th, 2015. This is finally the week we've been waiting for, and many of you out there have been waiting for. I wish me personally, I'm just a fan, but Model X deliveries are finally starting. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I wanted to start off, though. The coolest thing happened to me today. The coolest thing. I'm out walking my dog in a place I like to go walk my dog from time to time that I'm pretty well familiar with. And it's, I don't want to give too many details because this ended up being at the person's house. So I want to respect privacy, but I was walking down the street with my dog and I look over and I see an S in the driveway. And then next to it, it didn't register at first. Like, wait a second. That's an X. That's a Model X. So there's an S and an X next to each other in the driveway of this house. And so I walk over and I'm trying to tie my dog to the tree because I don't want her, anywhere near the car. Not that she's well trained. She's a therapy dog, but still, it's I don't want her. I don't even want to. If the owners see me, which I was going to knock on the door, it's like I don't even want the dog near this. So I start to walk over and I was like, okay, there's the X. I'm not normally one to bother people. I'm like, I'm going to knock on the door in this case because I want to ask him about this. And but coincidentally, the gentleman and his wife they came out of around through their backyard and out towards the car, towards me, and they see me walking down their driveway. And so I said, I hope I don't seem like a stalker, but I was wondering if I could check out your Model X. And the guy was very gracious. They're on their way out, so I feel bad. I hope I didn't hold them up, but it's Founders number 36. I ran into randomly. It is a black P90D with tan interior, 22-inch silver wheels. I'm very fortunate. I got to see the X's at the reveal event back on the September 29th. But there, there were over 1,000 people there. I did get to sit in Elon's car and take pictures and look at it, but there were, dozens of people swarmed around it at any time. In this case, the gentleman, the owner, was extremely kind. I said, do you mind if I check out the X? And he said, sure, go ahead and get in it, get in the front, get in the back. So the first thing I wanted to do was try the door handles, because at the reveal event, Elon's car was just all opened up. You couldn't open and close the doors. Too many people around anyway. And so, of course, as you probably know, but in case you're not aware, the X does not have the auto-presenting door handles anymore. They're you touch it, you push it in slightly, and the door opens, either the Falcon Wing door in the rear or the front doors as well. And so at first I started with the Falcon Wing and started in the back and sat in the second row. And it really is a striking car. Again, I think I mentioned this. So this was a black Model X. And I love those Falcon Wing doors so much. You guys are going to love them. You guys that are getting your X's are going to love those Falcon Wings. And I will say I was surprised at how hard you had to push the door handles to get them to open. It took me like 3 tries. First I tried just kind of touching it, and I thought maybe it's just a capacitive touch, which like my Xbox One and PlayStation 4, the power buttons for that's how they work. So I thought, maybe the X is the same way, where it just needs to sense skin and it'll do it. I was like, nope, you gotta. Then I tried pushing it a little bit, it didn't work. Then the third time, you give it a little, just a harder, just a good press, and it opened up. So I was a little surprised at that, but that's not a complaint. That's just, I may have simply had my expectations calibrated strangely for whatever reason. I also have to say that this was my first time, second time in an X, first time outside and in daylight. And my goodness, the windshield, I think it's my favorite thing in the car. I love the Falcon Wing, the Gullwing door family, which in this case includes the Falcon Wings. I love the Falcon Wings, but of course they're in the rear, so if I'm driving, I don't get to use them. But even if I did have an X, but yeah, the Falcon Wings are great. But man, I think the windshield might be my favorite feature of the car compared to the S. That windshield is just stunning. I mean, it is stunning to sit in the driver's seat and to have just that just sky above you with nothing impeding the sight line, no crossbar, no nothing. It is just something to behold. It really, really is beautiful. And I have to say, the gentleman this stranger walks into his driveway with a dog, starts, is clearly a fan of Tesla and a fan of the X, but so I start looking it over and he's like, we're just getting ready to leave. Did you want to pull it out? So, sure. And I told him, well, I've been lucky. I work for a tech website, and I've reviewed the P85D and the P85 before that. So, but my what kindness, what trust and kindness of this owner for this stranger that wanders into his driveway and says, "You want to pull the car out?" It's like, I mean, I could have mashed the pedal because it's a insane car. I could smash it into something ahead. I could have driven away with it. I mean, obviously, it would just I wouldn't have gotten far. But what trust, what kindness from this job. I'm not so sure I would have done the same thing in his position. What a kind gentleman. His wife as well, very kind. He said he got it just after Thanksgiving. They've been having a great time with it, and they're just still getting used to it. And I said, so yeah, what do you think of it in comparison? Because remember, he has an S. He had a P85 Plus in his driveway right next to the X, also black. So clearly, he's a fan of black Teslas. Matching S and X for him in his driveway. And he said, it handles exactly the same, which is telling because he has a P85 Plus. So the revised suspension. By the way, we're going to talk a little bit more about the P85 Plus a little bit later. In fact, in just a few minutes. But yeah, he said it handles just like the S, but it's just different because you're sitting up higher. So I thought that was really fascinating. But just a fantastic. Getting to see it in daylight and without 300 people around was really, really cool. Weirdly, I didn't even get his name because I was so taken aback by the car, and then they were clearly on their way somewhere, and I'm like talking to them, and then they're finally I was getting ready to say thank you and leave, and he was like, okay, well, thanks. So, like, he clearly wanted to go, and then I felt bad. I don't know if by chance he'll hear this. If he does, thank you, and I'm sorry I didn't say thank you in the moment, but thank you for taking the time to, not only just taking the time, but letting me sit in your car and then drive your car 20 feet. So, what a fun day that was, what a fun experience that was. So, yeah, I've had my first Model X encounter in the wild it was on December 19th, 2015. So, to the owner of Founders 36, you know who you are. Thank you very much. You were very kind. So I will close on this by saying, I was thinking about it on the rest of the dog walk that, like, how many Model X's are there, period, running around in the wild in the world right now? 50? Tops. Like, as of Saturday the 19th, because I know, signature deliveries are starting to happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I was like, man, in this exact little moment in time, I'm in like a really exclusive, neat little club. I'm one of the only members of the public to have, I can say I've driven the car, to have actually driven a Model X. I'm one of maybe, 100, 100 people. Who knows? So it's I thought that was really neat. Again, it's totally meaningless, but again, for me, a Tesla super fan who can't afford a Tesla yet, who is the wild-eyed kid with his hands pressed up against the glass, looking, from the outside looking in. It was a really neat experience for me today, and I'm very appreciative and grateful for it. And those of you that are going to be getting Model X's soon, you're going to go through, of course, a whole similar but different thing where you're going to be excited and you're going to get used to the car and it's going to become a part of your life. But yeah, for me today, that was a really, really special moment to just, be one of the very first members of the public to drive the car. Even asterisk, it was only 20 feet out of his driveway. But yeah, very cool stuff. And my other two takeaways were, one, I was reminded, I saw it at the reveal event, but I was reminded that, the X is a big boy. It is a big boy. It is, if you're familiar with the S, it's bigger, it is longer, it is wider, if you live in a tight city space, it's, you might have a bit of a challenge on your hands, but yeah, it's a big car for better or for worse. And then my other takeaway of it is it's just so impressive. Everything about it. You can say what you want about, did Elon over-engineer the car? Is there too much fancy stuff in it with like the, triangulated auto-opening key fob, the door and the Falcon wings and the windshield and all that stuff? Maybe. Maybe it is, and it took so much longer than anyone thought or hoped it would, whether that's people internal at Tesla or just customers. But at the end, as the car now arrives, boy, is it impressive. I genuinely, I've been a car person my whole life. I think I told the story on the very first episode where I've been just into cars ever since I was a little kid, ever since I could remember. My dad used to bring me home like once a week a Hot Wheels or Matchbox car, and I had a whole big giant hope chest full of Matchbox cars and Hot Wheels that I would just play with endlessly. And I had my DeLorean forever, and I've always been into cars, but I've genuinely never liked an SUV before. Or a crossover. They've just never really done it for me. I like sedans, I like sports cars, but boy, the X is between the Tesla-ness of it, the speed and the ride and the safety and the space inside, and not to mention the storage capacity and the Falcon wings and that stunning windshield. I was like, man, I totally want this. Like if you gave me a choice between the S and the X, I think I would still ultimately choose the S, because not only in my life, like I think I may have spoken about my garage I have a garage, but it's a single car opening and the S barely fits through. The X being bigger, I don't even know if it would fit through. If it did, it would be by such slim margins that it would be an almost impossible daily task and be so stressful. I think practically speaking, I would still choose the S. I think the S is a sexier car. The X is beautiful, but anyway, point being, the X really is impressive. And I think when you see it, you're probably going to be impressed. And for those of you on the reservation list that are eagerly awaiting a car, I really think you're going to be happy. I really think you're going to look at it, and especially if you haven't seen it yet, you're just going to be like, wow. I think wow is going to come out of a lot of people's mouths with this car over the coming weeks and months. So that was the highlight of my day. What a fun, unexpected treat that was. Now I want to go to Eric from Chicago, who wanted to call in. Tesla's evolving so quickly, moving so quickly. He was curious about the P85 Plus in particular, and what the heck it was. Eric, go ahead.
Hey Ryan, this is Eric from Chicago. I am also a fellow Tesla fan saving up my money for whatever I'm going to buy. And one thing that I think you could explain a little bit for us listeners, I just spotted a P85 Plus on the road here, and I'd never heard that model. And if you could give a little bit of differentiation between what the different models are. And I understand, P means performance, D means dual motor, all-wheel drive, ludicrous mode means, faster stuff. But then, you talk about a lot on the podcast, the Signature Series, Founder Series, and just Googling that stuff, I haven't been able to find a really good delineation of what it means. I know the Founders basically has to do with people who are really close investors of Tesla, and Signature means, I guess, you're an early adopter and you've got a nice car. But anyway, if you could explain what that means, like a P85 Plus versus a P85B, a Signature Series versus a Founder Series versus a run-of-the-mill series, that would be pretty cool. Anyway, love the podcast. Thanks for putting out a great show, and look forward to hearing the next one. Happy holidays.
Eric, thank you for calling in on the Ride the Lightning hotline, which you can do anytime, toll-free. All you do is you call and you leave a message, and I can play it on the show and talk about it. The number is 1-888-989-TSLA. That's 1-888-989-8752. So Eric in Chicago, thanks for the call. Appreciate you listening to the show. And yeah, it's funny. When I first listened to your call, I was like, wait, how do you not know what the P85 Plus is? And then I realized, well, it was kind of this almost weird, not weird, but it was this sort of brief moment in time for Tesla that was pretty inside baseball. When the Model S first came out, the top-end car was the P85, which of course was the rear-wheel drive, single-motor car, larger electric motor, so to get more horsepower. And then, of course, now we have the Ds, the P85D or the 85D or just the 85 or the 70 or the 70D. But yeah, the P85 Plus, Eric, it came out in fall of 2013, so about a year into full production. Fall 2013, and it lasted until the Ds were introduced in fall of 2014. So the P85 Plus had about a 1-year run. And it was an add-on package that you could get for the P85. And what it was all suspension and handling focused. The motor's the same, the power's the same, but it was all about the handling. So it had upgraded suspension parts, it had staggered wheels front and rear, the rears being a bit wider, bigger tires. And so the idea was that the car would handle better. I've actually never been in or driven a P85 Plus, but by all accounts from owners on the Tesla Motors Club forum, it is a bit stiffer of a ride. You'll feel a bit more of the road, but it'll handle a little bit sharper. So that's the trade-off you're making. But yeah, the P85 Plus was discontinued when the Ds hit. And so the P85 Pluses are reasonably rare, I guess, because there can't be too many of them out there, because Tesla wasn't, between fall 2013 and fall 2014, Tesla didn't make a ton of cars, certainly not compared to, in 2015 they're on track to have made about 50 to 55,000 cars. And so I don't remember how many they did between 2013 and 2014, fall 2013 to fall 2014. But maybe it was 35,000, and of those, how many of them were P85 Pluses? Probably not a ton of them. But then it got me thinking, well, I guess it's definitely not the rarest of the Tesla breeds. I'm not going to count the Roadster in this, which 2,500 were built. But the rarest Model S, the one that I have no confirmed sightings of, and I live here in the Bay Area, and I work in San Francisco, where I see them literally every day. The rarest Model S is the 40, the Model S 40, the 40 kilowatt battery hour battery car, pardon me. But then I realized, well, maybe I actually have seen one and just not realized it, because I don't think the 40s ever got badged. because the badge on the lower right portion of the trunk lid, the early Model S's didn't have badges. The first run of cars did not have badges. They didn't start badging them until, I believe, around the spring of 2013. In fact, my cousin Pat in Arizona, who has a February 2013 build Model S P85, his car did not have a badge when he first got it, and then one day he texted me a picture and said, I got my badge, because he went after they started badging the cars, he went to the service center and got his P85 badge. But the 40s were discontinued before the badging ever started, and I can't imagine that Tesla even made badges, because they were also technically they could all be turned into 60 kilowatt hour battery cars at literally the press of a button by Tesla, by a phone call from the owner. They were 60 kilowatt hour batteries that were software limited to 40. So all the owner had to do was call and pay 10 grand and to unlock that extra battery power. And I wonder if any of them ever did. So yeah, I suspect there are very, very few 40s out there, especially as some of those people probably have upgraded it to the 60. They have taken advantage of that software unlock and paid the fee for that. So yeah, the 40 kilowatt hour Model S is probably the rarest of them all. But the P85 Plus, yeah, was an interesting little period of time in the company's rapid evolution, as they've now come, all the way up to P90D Ludicrous, and the power and handling that car has. So great stuff. Eric in Chicago, thank you very much. I remind you, if you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for me, call me up on the Ride the Lightning hotline. Again, you call 24/7, day or night. Just leave a message. It's toll free. You can call it or Skype this number. And that number is 1-888-989-8752. A little easier to remember is 1-888-989-TESLA, TSLA. The stock version of it, the NASDAQ spelling. And I remind you that if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit my friends at lifeonrecord.com to learn more. And before I get to the news, I want to ask, do you like the new theme and bumper music? I stealthily debuted it last week because I'd gotten a few complaints over the weeks about the Metallica, which, I chose it on purpose because the show's Ride the Lightning and there's Metallica. Anyway, I thought it was, just energetic and fun, but a few people weren't a fan of the Metallica, so I wasn't sure if those people were representative of a larger group or if they were just a few isolated complaints, or, well, I won't call them complaints, just call it feedback. But finally I thought about it last week and went, you know what? It's really not that big of a deal either way. So if people don't like it, I'll just change it. So I found something that I hope will be a little bit more palatable for everybody. What do you think? And for you video game fans out there, do you recognize it? I will put that test to you. Be right back with this week's Tesla news. All right, the news we've all been waiting for. It's finally happened this week. Mark the date on the calendar, December 18th, 2015, the day that signature reservation holders began getting their Model X's. Deliveries began, starting with Ken Adelman from Santa Cruz, California. He took delivery of signature number 1 on Friday. Bonnie Norman, signature number 2, is happening today as the show releases, meaning Sunday, the 20th. Other signatures have been spotted at service centers around the country being prepped for delivery, and word around the campfire is that the floodgates may be about to open. So it would seem that whatever, Elon had sort of, I don't even want to necessarily call it hinted at, but more or less suggested that there was a part or two holding things up on the last conference call. Perhaps if there was indeed a parts issue, it seems to have been resolved because it looks like all systems are about to fire now. All systems are go. This is great news. I love this. Maybe a lot of Christmas presents coming for those a lot of signature reservation holders who've maybe been on the list for almost 4 years, which is that's quite a journey from, putting down okay, Tesla, you got to remember, the S wasn't even out when these people put down their reservations on the X. So very much an unknown quantity, and they put their $40,000 down. And they are finally now about to start driving away in them, starting with Ken and Bonnie. This is just fantastic news. It's going to be great to start seeing them around and really hearing owners' impressions of them. I mean, we had Templeton is like the one of the founders, folks from the 29th event. He posted a thing that was labeled a review of the Model X online this week. I read it. I mean, I would call them impressions, and also the fact that, I mean, he's a Founders Series holder. He's an investor in the company. He's probably not going to be a guy that's going to really make any criticisms of the car, should he have any, at least not publicly, because, he's looking to keep his investment, keep that stock price up, and also stay in the good graces so that he gets to buy a Founder Series of the next car, of the Model 3. So that's not to say his quote-unquote review was disingenuous at all, but I read it. There's not a lot of substance to it. I just think it was a little unfair. As someone who reviews things for a living, reviews video games, it was a little strange to call that a review, a little unfair to call that a review, but we saw some interesting impressions and photographs from him this past week. But congratulations, just absolutely congratulations to Ken and to Bonnie. Just the day they've waited so long for, and to all of you other signature reservation holders, your time is coming very soon now, and to the production reservation holders, your time shouldn't be too far behind, particularly obviously if you've chosen to configure a performance model. Your time will be much less. You'll have much less of a wait than the 90D folks. But so here it is. I mean, it's come up how many times on this podcast, and it's great to see that the cars are finally starting to get into regular customers' hands as opposed to the Founders Series folks. And of course, because the Founders cars are all going to people, they're in some way connected to Tesla, either as high-ranking employees or investors or both. So great stuff. It is happening. Here we go. I just can't wait to hear more about this. If anybody in my audience is taking delivery of, or whenever you take delivery of your S, if I've got any signature reservation holders, when you get your car, if it's hopefully going to be this holiday, please call in after a few days. I would love to hear about it. Just file that away in the back of your head. But next up on the news list this week, Elon Musk says that the Gigafactory will produce moderately better batteries at first, according to an article that I read on electrek.co. He was speaking at the AGU fall meeting and said that the technology improvements at the Gigafactory will not be small nor big, but moderate. First of all, this is just Elon being honest with people, which he's always been really good at. But it's also him, he's setting expectations. This isn't a surprise. I mean, there wasn't going to be an overnight aha moment or eureka moment, and I hope, and this is probably Elon trying to make sure that people, because I think Tesla's done so much so quickly that there may be people out there that are thinking that Elon's just a miracle worker and that the battery chemistry is magically going to transform overnight. And while I'm sure Elon wants that to be the case, that is not the case and is not going to be the case right away. So yeah, I mean, Gigafactory, it's about economies of scale. It is about battery chemistry improvements, and it is about making better batteries and advancing, just the cost, affordability, and range of EVs. But this, it's going to be more of an evolution with the Gigafactory, not a revolution. But the thing is, that evolution will in time feed the revolution, because the revolution is going to be a good long-range EV that's extremely affordable, that Tesla and hopefully other car companies are going to start building in force. In fact, on that similar note, I actually didn't write this down in my show notes, but I've just remembered that Elon signed on to an open letter that's being from, I believe, California, the state of California, and a bunch of other folks, that says, hey, Volkswagen Group, we will, instead of keeping you on the hook for repairing all of the California cars that you cheated on the emissions test, those are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Instead, we'll basically drop the charges. Basically, they offered VW a plea bargain. We'll quote unquote drop the charges in exchange for a promise that you're going to dedicate a crazy amount of effort to building electric cars, to building zero emissions vehicles. And that's, again, that's Elon thinking with the bigger picture. That's what the guy is so good at. That's Elon Musk, the chef, versus the cooks that run so many other car companies. So I thought that was a very interesting thing this week of Elon saying, yeah, forget it. These cars that are out there right now, don't worry about it. They're insignificant in the grand scheme of things. What would be more beneficial, since we've got leverage over Volkswagen, we have them over a barrel. What's the better way to instead of just fining them into oblivion, well, why don't we use this opportunity to get them to commit to a large-scale EV program? So the question remains, will this sort of become a real thing? Will these terms be accepted? Will the Volkswagen Group do this? We don't know yet, but I thought that was really interesting, and very, very curious to see how that ends up. Finally this week, more Elon Musk news. Wouldn't be a Tesla podcast without the great Elon Musk. Still hope to get him on here someday. Someday I'm going to make it happen somehow. But Elon, this one really hit close to home for me because I am a writer by trade. Elon rebuked Ashley Vance, the same Ashley Vance that wrote the Elon Musk biography, about an article on self-driving cars that was about George Hotz, the guy who initially cracked the iPhone, the guy who cracked the PlayStation 4. He's since then been hired on at various tech companies to sort of dig into what, help them understand what they're doing a bit better. And so Vance did this article about how George Hotz had sort of crafted his own homebrew self-driving car. And Elon had to come out with a blog post on Tesla's website saying, this is just part of it, I'm not going to read you the whole thing. The article by Ashley Vance did not correctly represent Tesla or Mobileye, which is the Autopilot hardware, camera, and sensor provider for Tesla. We think it is extremely unlikely that a single person or even a small company that lacks extensive engineering validation capability will be able to produce an autonomous driving system that can be deployed to production vehicles. It may work as a limited demo on a known stretch of road. Tesla had such a system 2 years ago, but then requires enormous resources to debug over millions of miles of widely differing roads. The correction article went on to point out that Tesla's system is proprietary, that it's not an off-the-shelf kit. Basically, it was hey, Ashley Vance, you're totally wrong. You've made some inaccuracies, incorrect statements here. And boy, I can tell you, again, as a writer by trade myself, it would probably, I've been lucky this has never happened to me, but I would probably feel pretty terrible if Elon Musk called me out publicly on a piece that I did saying that I was inaccurate or incorrect. So I'm sure that Ashley Vance, I'm sure he did not have a very good day the day that he saw that rebuke went up from Elon. But nevertheless, I thought that was very interesting as, Tesla continues to focus on Autopilot. They are leading the world in that category right now, largely because of the always connected cars, which we talked about on a previous episode and that Elon also mentioned in that very same blog. With every car being connected, it really just makes a heck of a difference. So big stuff in the world of Tesla this week. Just heading right up to Christmas. We'll see how next week goes. I am planning to do a show next week, unless just nothing happens, but that is the hope. Probably next week, and then maybe take the week after off. In any case, that's it for the week of Tesla news. Let me wrap things up here right after this. All right, let me plug a few things before I hit the road. First, I remind you that you can follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. You can also email me for a longer form correspondence, teslapodcast@gmail.com. Fairly easy to remember there. And hey, if you're a video game fan, take a look at my work, my day job, IGN.com. I'm sort of all over the place there. We've got a lot of Star Wars stuff this week. I'm sure many of you, like me, saw Star Wars. You know what? I won't say anything this week because a lot of you maybe haven't seen it yet and you don't want any spoilers or any sort of hints of any kind. So I'll save my general impressions of Star Wars. They're on my Twitter, but you'd have to dig back at this point. But in any case, happy Star Warsing if you are going to see the film this week. Hey, while you're waiting, because the theater lines are going to be long, while you're in line for Star Wars, maybe check out nerdstyles.com. That is my t-shirt website where I've got a few fun designs up there that are inspired by some video game and geek culture stuff. It's not too late to give it as a holiday gift for yourself or someone that you care about, and it would definitely brighten up my holiday if you did so. And definitely subscribe if you do not already to Dave T's weekly Tesla newsletter. You can do so for free at teslaweekly.com. And, hey, maybe you're getting a brand new Model S for the holidays this year, or X. You can listen to this podcast in your Tesla via TuneIn. Just bring up TuneIn on your touchscreen and then type in Tesla Podcast into the search field. And then be sure to follow it so that it's easy to find each and every week. New shows, of course, drop every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. I thank everybody for sticking with me here. 21 episodes in, I'm having a ball, especially now yes, we're going to have so much more to talk about. Now that the X is going to start to get out into the wild. We've got the Model 3 reveal event due in March. Tesla life is fun. This is going to be really great. I don't even own one, and I still have so much fun. I would have... And if you're a crazy rich person with more money than you know what to do with, buy me an 85D in multi-coat red for the holidays. It would consider it your act of. It would make the show better because I'd have more to talk about from firsthand experience. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and I will see you again next week.